When we consider any technology or any particular tool, we have to work on the analyzation of the data. If I'm talking about the analyzation of the data, I'm also talking about the analyzation which includes multiple transformations. Am I right? So if I take you to the example of Power BI, we require data transformation. If I take Tableau, we require data transformation. If I talk to you about Azure, we require data transformation. In the same way, in programming also, we require some analysis, right? So when we are talking about all these different aspects, we should make sure that when we are talking about analyzation, when we are talking about data transformation, we need to have the data. Without the data, it is not at all possible to do any sort of transformation, or it's no point of discussing about all these things. Am I right? So when we are talking something about the data, then it requires some steps. For example, if I talk to you about the Power BI or Tableau, we have to extract the data, we have to understand the data, we have to transform it, we have to use Power Query Editor if we are in Power BI, right? So these things are involved. In the same way, if I talk to you about the Snowflake, if you want to do some data transformation, or if you would like to do some analysis there in the Snowflake, so first we have to get the data. So where is the data from? For example, if you are considering the provider as AWS, which is S3 bucket, if you are considering the provider as Azure, which is blob storage, so from there we have to get the data and we have to work on it. So now the point is that when we are having the storage account and then we have to get the data, all these things we have to do it manually. If we want to avoid these manual steps to perform in getting the data and loading it into our database, so what is the interesting feature that we can consider in Snowflake? Hi, I'm M. Asif Hussain from KnowHow Academy. What are we going to learn in this video? We are going to learn and understand what is Snowpipe, how does the Snowpipe works, and how to set up Snowpipe. So by the end of this video, you could able to get a very clear idea on what is a Snowpipe, how we have to use it, what are the steps involved in working the principle in it, and how we have to set up the Snowpipe. So watch till the end. My dear viewers, whenever I am talking to you about a Snowpipe, so before discussing something about Snowpipe, let me give you a very general example. So in AWS, we have a storage. We call that storage as S3 bucket. In Microsoft Azure, we have a storage. We call it as a blob storage. So now when we are working on S3 bucket, first we have to create a bucket. After we create a bucket, then we have to upload some files in it. So now when I'm talking about uploading the files, it might be CSV file, it might be Excel file, it might be JSON file, it might be any sort of file. I'm not talking about the types of files that we are loading it. I'm just talking about the file we have to load it into our S3 bucket. So in the same way, in Microsoft Azure also, what we have to do, we have to go and create a storage account, a blob storage account. In that container, again in that we have to upload the files. So that's how it is. Now, when I am trying to create a relation between the Snowflake with AWS, Snowflake with Microsoft Azure, then what is the thing that we will do? We will create multiple parameters, like we will create a stage, file format, object, all these things comes into the picture. But what we have to focus is that when we are trying to create a connection in between our cloud providers, it might be AWS, GCP, Azure, whatever it might be, with our Snowflake, we are going to do it manually. What manually? We are copying the data, or we are getting the data, or we are loading the data from our storage providers or our cloud providers to our Snowflake database manually. So in order to create a automatic feature where without doing all these steps manually, automatically when a file is uploaded in the S3 bucket, in this case I am considering, in my particular video I am considering the scenario as S3 bucket. So in my S3 bucket, when we are uploading some files, then without doing manually, automatically whatever the data that we have it through a S3 notification, that data should be copied into our Snowflake database. So for that we will include in between something called as Snowpipe service. Okay, so that's what the Snowpipe is all about. So if we just look into it, we consider that Snowpipe, what it will do, as I told, that it enables the automatic loading the data once any file is uploaded in our given bucket. So for example, if I would like to consider that we are handling a data of a corporate event. So what all the things we have in a corporate event? In a corporate event, we have the number of customers coming, the details, personal information, the location, the vehicle details, the venue details, the infrastructure, the materials, the mic, the stage. So there are many things, the organizers data, the staff data. There are multiple things that are involved in a corporate event. So now in that particular corporate event, if we see that we have a data, now we have to do some analysis. So in order to perform some analysis immediately, okay, without having the much pressure on creating multiple steps in Snowflake, it's the best suitable option is creating a Snowpipe. So that's where we can use it. One of the general use cases I'm talking all about. So one interesting feature again I would like to focus on Snowpipe is that it is a serverless feature. Snowpipe, it is a serverless feature. So we do not need a virtual warehouse here. So instead of using a virtual warehouse, it uses the compute warehouse as well. What it will do? It will use the compute warehouse. So this is all about the Snowpipe, that how it works. So what exactly it is. But now let us see the working principle. Okay. So if we just look into this diagram, so here it is very clear that whenever we are trying to have a bucket, so this is our S3 bucket, right? So obviously here we are going to consider the stage as external stage itself, and whatever might be our storage provider, so that storage provider we are going to consider. What is the type of file we have it, that also we are going to consider, which is either CSV, either Excel, or either JSON, or whatever it might be. So now the point is that the location information from where we have to get this, that also we are going to create it. Am I right? So all these we are going to create in a stage. So that's how it, that's a step that is involved in the Snowpipe if you want to set it up. But rather than that, so before setting up a Snowpipe, so if I just focus you upon the working principle, how it works, then we will learn about the setting up of a Snowpipe. So if we just look into it, we have a S3 bucket. Now in my particular S3 bucket, I am going to upload one JSON file. Let's consider I am going to upload one JSON file. So as soon as I have uploaded one JSON file, a notification will be popped up. So when one S3 notification is popped up, this notification, what it will do, it will directly send it to the Snowpipe if we have created it. Okay, so this will send into a Snowpipe. So what this Snowpipe will do, this Snowpipe automatically, it will copy the data of the S3 from the S3 bucket that we have loaded it, and this particular Snowpipe, after copying the data, it will send to the Snowflake database. What it will do? It will send it to the Snowflake database. So this Snowflake database, that we have it in our particular Snowflake, whichever we are creating it. Okay, so that's how the automatic process works in this one. So if we do not have this Snowpipe, what will happen? If we do not have this Snowpipe, then all we have to do is we have to create a file format object, we have to create a stage, we have to list it, we have to copy the data, we have to set up the delimiters. There are multiple things that are the steps that are involved if we avoid using the Snowpipe. It's not compulsory to use, but it's good to use as it is an automatic process. So this is the working principle of how exactly it works of a Snowpipe. Now let's see how to set up this particular Snowpipe. So in order to set up this particular Snowpipe, the first thing that we have to know is that we should create a stage. Okay, as how we create a table, create table name, in the same way we are going to create or replace a stage with a stage name from the particular database which we are working on it. So that we have to specify, and we have to create a stage. So it's very easy for creating a stage. So why we have to create a stage? To make a connection. To make a connection between what? Between our S3 bucket to our Snowflake, between our storage or cloud provider to our particular Snowflake. So for making the connection between these two, we have to create a stage. So once we have created a stage, we should check. We should test whether this connection that we have made, it is successfully connected or not. It is successfully created or not. So that we have to test it. So that's where we use copy command. So by testing it. So after that, we have to create a pipe. Okay, so we will create a pipe as an object itself, but with the help of copy command, what we are going to do, we are going to create a pipe. So this is one of the important things that we have to know. So creating a stage, creating a file format object, copying the command, this is the regular thing that we will do. But creating a pipe, that's where our pipe will come in between our S3 bucket to our Snowflake database. So once we have to, after we create a pipe, so we have to enable the S3 notification. So this is not by default, we have to enable this S3 notification, so that whenever particular data gets loaded in our particular S3 bucket, then an S3 notification will be triggered. So that's where we have to trigger this in a Snowpipe. So these are the things, or these are the steps that are involved in order to set up the Snowpipe in our particular Snowflake. So once we are done with it, then it is an automatic process. Whenever the data is loaded, it is getting copied into our particular database without doing anything manually. So my dear viewers, in this video, we have learned what is a Snowpipe, how Snowpipe works, and how to set up Snowpipe. Thank you for choosing KnowHow Academy as your source for IT knowledge. We are always here to help you to navigate the tech world. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out. It's been a pleasure sharing this information with you. Stay curious and keep learning.